I am an attorney with my name of my law firm is GFH Law PLC. And just before we begin, a few disclaimers and some housekeeping. This presentation is for educational purposes only, and I'm not providing you with legal advice. And when you listen to this presentation, it does not create an attorney-client relationship between us. And also, this presentation may be considered attorney advertising material. Like I mentioned before, I will take questions at the end, and you go ahead and put your questions into the chat. All right, let me go ahead and introduce myself a little more, although Tilly kind of did a good job of that. I am a travel agency owner and a law firm owner. And no, I never have any time during the day because I'm very busy with both. But I've been a luxury travel advisor since 2019, and I've owned my own agency since 2023. As Tilly mentioned, I have practiced law since 2001. And I specialize in business and travel law. So I provide legal support to all types of businesses, entrepreneurs, startups, and travel advisors. And yes, I do have a monthly column with Insider Travel Report, and it's called Travel Law Insider. It's published the first Friday of every month. So you should, if you want to go to the website, you should be able to find the latest issue that just came out this past week. Okay, so the toolbox, what do you need as a travel advisor in your legal toolbox? So overall, you need to make sure that you have strong legal documents because these documents will set expectations by allocating risk and protecting your business because you've worked hard to build that business. Every travel advisor should have a core set of legal documents in place before issues arrive. That's the key. So what are those documents? What do you need to have? Probably heard of this before. First and foremost, the most important document are the client terms and conditions. So I'll go over some common mistakes first before diving into what these typically have. But a lot of folks, what they'll do is they'll do piecemeal. They create their own terms, basically taking piecemeal terms from someone else's website, which who knows where that came from. Sometimes folks maybe they have terms, but they delete them. They make them really, really short because like these are just too long. Some folks fail to get clients to agree to the terms before researching a trip. It's really essential to have your clients agree to your terms before you do any work for them. Also, relying on your host agency or even a supplier's terms and conditions. That is not your agency's that's not your terms and conditions. Those are your host agency's terms and conditions. Those are your supplier's terms and conditions. You as a travel advisor need your own. Another thing is some folks, they just rely on verbal agreements or emails with their clients. And worst yet, having nothing at all. So those are some of the big mistakes. So without terms and conditions, you can be exposed to claims that go way beyond what you may have intended to offer your clients. An example is a client may assume you are responsible for issuing supplier refunds if they cancel, even though that is out of your control. So think about that. Like obviously you want to protect yourself from that type of situation. So that's why we want to have some terms and conditions in place. So terms and conditions are a contract. And so a clear contract will help prevent misunderstandings and it will give you a strong defense if there was a dispute that escalates with your client. Of course, you want to make sure that your terms and conditions are signed or otherwise affirmatively accepted. So for instance, if you have a CRM like Travefy or TravelJoy or Turn, there should be a way for you to create it in a form and have a mandatory checkbox and have them sign off on it that way electronically. And again, this needs to be done before you begin providing services to your client, not after you've given them a quote and before they place their deposit. It needs to be done before you do any work for them. Okay, so another essential item in your toolbox is an independent contractor agreement if you're an EIC. So if you are hosted, if you have a host agency, you're going to have an independent contractor agreement that I guarantee you well, I don't guarantee you, but most hosts make sure that they have something in writing with their ICs. And what it does is it governs your income, your client relationships, your ability to leave the host, and also your exposure liability. So a lot of advisors will sign these agreements without fully understanding them. And you need to make sure, well, don't assume that the host agreement is non-negotiable. You should be able to negotiate it. Um, or also don't assume that it's balanced, that it's equal for both sides. Usually it is slanted quite favorably towards the host. Okay, so I'm going to go through a lot of key provisions that you should focus on and review carefully and ideally negotiate before you sign. So first off, independent contractor status. That's really the whole point of the agreement. And that's to ensure that you are not the host agency's employee. You are likely going to be you're going to be a 1099 for tax purposes. And in order to keep having that status, you need to watch out for language that gives the host control over things like your hours, your methods, like how you run your business, your client communications, or even provisions that require you to be exclusive with the host. Any of that could undermine independent contractor status. I'm really doing this presentation from the perspective of a travel advisor. If you're actually an agency owner and you are hiring independent contractors, this is in your favor as well too. Like you don't want to have a travel advisor become your employee if you never intended that. So it goes both ways. Another key provision that you should take a look at is commission ownership and payment terms. Very important. That's the money. The agreement needs to state that the commissions earned belong to you, the advisor, and it's only subject to the agreed upon host split. So if it's like 90-10, 80-20, 70-30, whatever you have agreed to. It also needs to outline a timeline for when they pay you once they receive the funds from a supplier. Okay, next up, client ownership and data. So your clients should be yours, not your host agencies. So you need to be able to retain ownership of your client list and data. In addition, you should be able to continue servicing your clients after the agreement terminates. So you want to avoid provisions where the clients are so-called host agency clients or anything that would prohibit you from contacting them after termination. Um, termination. So termination rights, you want to definitely look closely at whether you can terminate without cause, which basically means like for no reason at all. And also what that notice period would be, like how much notice you have to give your host. Like, is it 30 days? Is it 60 days? What's that runway? So after termination, what are your rights to commission payments? You want to ensure that commissions that you earn before termination are still payable to you after termination, that your host doesn't keep everything. Even after you leave a host, you should receive commissions for those bookings. So they shouldn't be able to keep it. Another important thing is non-competes and non-solicitation. So what are these? These are basically restrictive provisions that can prevent you from working as a travel advisor after termination or from even contacting your own clients. So if these are ever included at all, ideally we don't have these, but these need to be you want to make sure that these restrictions are very narrow and they're reasonable and time bound or time limited. So we don't want something going on forever, in terms of like that type of restriction. Okay, indemnification liability. So indemnification, those types of clauses are usually written to protect the host exclusively. And then you just want to, these can be very complicated legal provisions. Basically, indemnification is where like you agree to indemnify or make the host whole for like if something happens, like if there's a breach of the agreement, and let's say somebody sues them, like a client sues the agency and it was your fault, then if the agency has to like pay money out to that client, you have to then pay the money back to your host agency. That's sort of a very basic way to say it. So you want to try to limit that as much as possible and only limit it to if possible, your own gross negligence or willful misconduct. Those are some very technical legal terms. But definitely these are kind of very important things that you'd want a lawyer to look at to make sure you're being protected. Other provisions, use of branding and marketing rights. So you want to make sure that the agreement states how you can use the host brand or logo, and whether you can even use it at all, I guess. And then also, can you operate under your own brand? How does that work? And then finally, ideally, you also want to retain the ability to market yourself independently. If you're not allowed to do that, that also is sort of a red flag. And maybe you're more of a sub-agent rather than an independent contractor. And that's actually a different type of agreement. And I'm not really going into that in this presentation, but that's definitely something you'd want to consider too. If you're a sub-agent, you're basically working under your host agency's brand, and doing stuff for them in that regard. And you're not really you're not as much your own business in that respect. And finally, dispute resolution and governing law. So the contract is going to say which state laws applies to the agreement. So you want to check what that state is, where they say that any disputes have to be resolved, and also whether arbitration is mandatory. So arbitration is basically says you can't go to court. You basically have to do a like it's more of an informal proceeding, but it's still binding on you. So you want to try to, if you don't want to do that, I mean, I recommend against it, but it just depends on the situation. But generally want to avoid provisions that force you to resolve disputes in a distant location. Okay, so here's another document in your for your toolbox. Website terms of use. So if you have a website or if you have an online booking platform, you need to have website terms of use. It's basically a standardized rule book for interacting with your business online. So examples of what it may have is it clarifies the role of third-party suppliers. It limits damages and excludes certain claims. It talks about how disputes will be resolved. So basically, to be enforceable, we need to make sure that these terms of use are reasonably visible on your site and hopefully should require some form of assent or agreement, such as a checkbox or an acknowledgement. If you post them on a hidden web page, it's usually not sufficient to basically, nobody will know it's there and they won't even know if they're subject to these terms of use. Privacy statement, another document for your toolbox. So this also is a place you can post this to your website as well. So travel advisors handle a lot of sensitive personal information. You usually will get passport details, dates of birth, payment data sometimes. So this makes privacy compliance a big priority. So privacy statement basically explains the data that you collect, how you use it and store it, who you share it with, how long you retain it, and then how clients can access or request deletion of their data. Oops, sorry, I went backwards. Okay, now I'm going crazy with hold on. I went too fast. Hold on one sec. I am so sorry. Let me go back to I'm gonna go back to my presentation. I can't get the thing to go back. So okay, I'm gonna do it again. Gives me a chance to reset here. Okay. Apologies. Okay. Privacy statement. Here we go again. So even if you're a small agency or a small, you're just an individual, you could be subject to privacy laws if you collect data from certain jurisdictions. So there's regulations that you may have heard of, such as GDPR or CCPA. These can apply regardless of where you're located, especially if you're interacting with residents of those jurisdictions. So not just complying, but also just having that privacy statement helps build trust with your clients. Um, they want reassurance that their information is handled responsibly. So if you cannot document your data practices, you're basically you're definitely risking regulatory penalties, but you can also have, big issues with your clients if there actually is a breach or a complaint against you. Okay, that was a summary, but next steps. If any of your contracts, if you hopefully you have some of these, but if you don't, that's one thing you need to consider. But if you haven't reviewed them recently, it might be time for a legal tune-up. So online templates, okay, so those are super, super tempting. I know there's a lot out there. I'm not going to name names, but you need to be careful about that because travel is it's actually a pretty highly regulated industry, and we're very supplier dependent. So there's a lot of unique risk exposure that we have as travel advisors. I always say that legal documents, they should be tailored to your business model, your jurisdiction, where you're actually located, the markets you serve. Like, are you leisure? Are you corporate? Do you do groups? And similarly, the types of travel that you sell. Okay, now my clicker wants to be stuck. Okay, here we go. So how can a travel lawyer help you with your contract? So basically, we already talked about terms and conditions, but a travel lawyer can help you, create those terms and conditions, and also give you advice about best practices and how to implement that. Like, how do you want to have your client sign the document? How do you want to put that in through Travefy or TravelJoy? One thing I do for my clients, I actually offer like a CRM audit, if you want me to go in and help, see what the workflow is and make sure you're doing it correctly, that kind of thing. So for independent contractor, and I also mentioned the sub-agent agreements, travel lawyers can provide advice on host transitions. So let's say maybe you signed a really bad host agency agreement and you want to move on anyways. They'll analyze your agreement to help you figure out the best way to do that without losing too much or getting in trouble or breaching the agreement. Obviously, we've talked about website terms of use, privacy statement. Another area is group contracts. So whether you're signing a contract with the supplier for a group, but what about, let's say you have a Pied Piper and you really should get a group leader agreement in place for a Pied Piper, because let's say that Pied Piper, they have certain expectations and, oh, I thought you were giving me a free room. Well, what are the circumstances under which you would give the free room? Like, let's go ahead and document that and make sure it's clear. So that's the type of thing that a travel lawyer can help with. Okay. Waiting on my presentation. Okay. So this is my contact information. So I ran through that really fast, so definitely have time for questions here. But here's my contact information, my website. I'm on LinkedIn for now. I'm hoping to start a YouTube channel, so be on the lookout for that. But there's my email address as well. Questions. So I will go ahead. I don't know if anybody had questions, anything in the chat, or anybody had. I know I went super, super fast, but I don't want to have you here all night listening to boring legal stuff either.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you talked about the client terms and conditions and getting that signed before you provide any type of services. So do you also add it then to the invoices when you send the invoice to them, or is that something different?
I kind of do it as like a one and done. So because at least this is how my workflow is. I basically, I don't know, do you use a CRM? Like what do
Yeah,
you use?
Travel Joy. Mhm.
Travel Joy. Okay. Um, so typically like I know with Travefy, which is what I use, I have a form that I've heard, it's basically a form, and I have my terms and conditions are in it, and they have to scroll down and read it, and then they check the box and then they sign it. But I send that out before, I have my initial client call, like the intake
Right.
call with them, like complimentary consultation or whatever, whether you're charging a fee or not. I do that. And then if they're ready to move forward, when they say confirm via email, okay, yeah, I want to move forward. I will send them a link to that. They will sign it, electronically sign it by checking the box, and it submits like proof to me that they've signed it. Then I do my research, give them a proposal, and then at that point when they're like paying, so I guess there's another question is what about credit card authorizations? So like that's sort of a separate thing. And what I do is I make sure that when they're doing, that's another form. I think that's actually a pretty standard form that you can use for in Travefy, like the credit card authorization language, and I can provide that to folks too, because it kind of goes with your terms and conditions. Because the terms and conditions that I have for my clients, or for my travel advisor clients, and my clients too, as a travel advisor, I have a provision that talks about credit card authorizations that says you're not, you are authorized when you pay, you're authorizing me to do this for you. And you're not going to submit, basically, you're not going to try to do a chargeback against me unless there's actual fraud. So there's a little bit of magic language to that you'll want to have in your terms and conditions, because when you actually, before you have them pay, you do want to make sure that you want to have them authorize each and every credit card transaction. And that's a separate little agreement. It's like that's more like a one paragraph blurb that you want to have them agree to when they submit the form with the credit card authorization. Um, but it piggybacks off of what should already be in your terms and conditions that says you agree that when you're paying, you authorize me to use your credit card and you know that kind of thing. So does that answer your question? It was very roundabout,
No,
but
it
sort of like
does.
a whole workflow, like how it goes.
Right. No, you emphasize that we need to have it done up front. Well, here's a question then to piggyback that. So, what if we have a website in Travelify and folks sign up for trips from a link? The link goes back to Travel Joy and they sign up for the trip that way. How do I get them to sign the terms and conditions first without signing up for the trip?
You may have to sort of gatekeep that a little bit. So maybe you say, I mean, I guess how are you like finding out that they want to sign? Is this page open to the general public? Like
Yeah.
anyone can just, oh, okay, yeah, then if you want to do that, then you'll want to make sure that there is a way for them, maybe in the workflow, before they actually agree to that trip, because you've already created the trip, is ready for
Right.
them to like sign up, right?
Right.
I, you need to I would recommend doing something before they actually can agree to that trip and give you any of that information. Is there maybe a two-step, like maybe the step before that is, yes, I'm interested, but boom. And then maybe there's two check boxes. Maybe there's something where it's and you've probably seen this, like when you buy something on the web, you know how it always it always will make you, oh, agree to the terms and conditions. It won't let you move forward unless you agree to the terms and conditions. If there's a way for you to do that in the workflow, I would do that. I mean, again, this is one of the things I offer my clients is like helping them out with that type of process, like auditing and making sure that we're getting the consent at the right time. Because if someone in the general public anyone can go there and do it, like if they've already paid, then you have no way after the fact to get them to agree to your terms and conditions, just kind of just done. So you
Okay.
need to have a way that before they get to that point to kind of get them to agree. And how you do that depends on the actual platform and the workflow, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
So can I piggyback on that?
Sure.
Sorry, I was late.
No
That's okay.
problem.
Dealing with clients all day. So the terms and conditions, you're saying get that approved before you book or before they pay?
Before anything, before you even do
Before
the
anything.
research. Because if you think about it, let's say you're doing all this research, like the quotes. I mean, I think is even more important, definitely before they pay you any money.
Right.
Definitely, like whether you charging a planning fee or not. But I do it even if because I do have some clients that sometimes I don't charge them a fee because it's a really easy, like, okay, I know they want this cruise and I don't have to do any research for this. I don't have to do any work, so I'm not going to charge them a fee. I still do it because sometimes there's that back and forth with them via email or otherwise. Like, I don't want I kind of want to set the expectations. Like, this is my firm's process. We before I can begin research for you, one of my agency's policies are we sign these terms and conditions, like kind of make it seem like it's just normal business. But I do that because you could have a situation where, let's say you're going back and forth a bunch on quotes. If they don't, I mean, I guess there's possible, like, if they don't book with you, there's probably less risk, but I mean, I think you still need to protect yourself, like just in case. Like, I mean, that's just the best practice. And um, it's not the end of the world if you do it right before they actually give you money. But I think it's part of, I mean, it kind of depends on the situation. And given that, like, I don't want you to sort of have to worry about, well, when do I really need to do this for this type of trip versus this type of trip? Like I just think
So
it's best practice to get it done at the get-go. Just say this is part of the process before I begin any research. Because if you get too far down the line, think about it. Let's say you've been doing research for weeks and then suddenly you're like, by the way, I need you to sign these terms and conditions before you pay me. Then what if the person chickens out and they're like, no, I'm not signing that. And they go away and they go to another travel advisor. So that's another thing. Think about that from your perspective. If you put it, let's say you're not charging a fee, let's say you put in all that work, like for like 2 or 3 weeks back and forth, you did all this research. If you never got them to agree to your terms and conditions, if that particular client was never going to sign them in the first place, and you did all that work for nothing. So I've actually had literally most, I hate to say it, but most people will not even read this document and
no, no,
agree to it, just like we all do it,
we
right?
all do it.
Yeah, we all do it.
Every time we buy a sweater, we agree to
But when
the
there's
condition.
something bad happens, you need to have this. You need to be able to pull it out and be like, here's the signed document. Um, the thing is, like, yeah, I've literally had only one person, and believe it or not, it was actually another lawyer. He's like, no, I don't feel comfortable signing this. I'm not going to book with you. I'm like, okay. And I didn't do any research, so I didn't have to waste my time. Like, to me, it's like, whatever. If you're not going to sign this, then sorry, you shouldn't be my client.
So
That's
just having it on the invoice is not good enough. They have to do an acknowledgement to it, right?
Yeah, because how are you going to know if they even looked at the invoice?
Well, they paid it.
Hey,
Yeah, but will
Well,
they look at the invoice after the fact? Who knows what they're looking at when you send it to
yeah,
them?
this is Joe. We've been in business for 10 years, and our terms and agreements been in place since day one. And I was wondering whether this was applicable to a FIT because Tilly already mentioned our niche is group travel, okay? And we build a sales page and we send it out to 15,000 people, okay? Some of these people we might not have met before. A lot of our clients live in Arizona, all over the place.
Right.
So I find it kind of difficult to understand exactly what it is they would be agreeing to in this terms and agreement. I mean, it's on our web environment. We want people to be educated about it and have it protect us. But I'm having a difficult time understanding specifically what they would be signing it for, because the trip has been built. I wanted to ask you a question about that that host also. Let's say it's a ski club, and they have somebody that wants to take 50 people skiing somewhere in Colorado or wherever.
can't hear
So I'm having
you.
a difficult time understanding. I know you said before you do any work, we do the work up front and build it.
Yeah, well, obviously, if you've already done the work and this is a group you're trying to sell into, I think that's a different situation.
Okay.
What I
Okay.
mean is, before you do work for this particular person, because then you're going to start having those interactions with the person. So definitely in that case, you guys, you said FIT is like kind of situation that I think Missy was talking about. I think more
Mhm.
like before, like, somebody just comes and asks for like, I want to go to Europe. Can you do a custom trip for me? Okay, yes. In that case, before she starts doing all that research for the custom trip, let's get them to agree to the terms and conditions so we're not wasting any time back and forth. But
Right.
your
Okay. Understood.
situation is different because you've already created the trip. You're trying to bring people in, but
Right.
you need to make sure before they pay you, or that should be part of the process, that they still agree to your terms and conditions. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. It's
Yeah.
not
We
it.
have them sign a lot of documents using their credit
It'll be
card.
one of the documents they
Yeah.
sign, basically. Yeah.
Right. They
And
sign this.
if they do it all at once, that's fine. As long as they
Okay.
sign it.
Okay.
The thing that makes me nervous though is you definitely want to make sure they sign it before they pay you. Because if they pay you and then they decide not to sign it, then you have a problem.
Okay, what we'll do then, we'll give some thought to the document that's there for authorization to use the credit card for billing purposes, make it a part of that process so that
Yeah.
they'll understand that these are the agreements that we work under with using your credit card, having you be a participant on this particular trip to cover us and to cover them for that matter. We always want to make sure that we help them be protected also.
Right. Exactly.
How do you say your name? I'm sorry. I
Oh,
wasn't here at the
it's
beginning.
pronounced Ganesh, like a SH
Ganesh.
on the
Oh,
end.
okay. So I came in on the tail end of you're talking about like with host agencies and having associate advisors. I have a contract that I modified from someone else. It wasn't done, it was originally done by an attorney, but I just modified it and put my company name in there instead. How often do you recommend like getting these things reviewed and or or
Definitely,
revised?
well, it's not about how often, but if you've never had anyone look at your version, then definitely recommend getting it reviewed.
Okay.
Because I mean, it could be that it's fine, like no big deal, which would be great because that'll be like a relief to you. But if it's not, then you want to definitely get it fixed. Like if there's something that's a little off or it doesn't work for your particular business, because
Uh-huh.
everybody's travel business is different, and
Right.
um, we just want to make sure that it is fits for what you do, and that's the key. And that's why I get really nervous about templates that people just pull off the web, or like again using someone else. Oh yeah, my
Mhm.
friend had this, or my fellow travel advisor had one too, so I'll just use what she uses. I mean, could work, but it's better than nothing. But there's still the risk there that it may not be right, that the right document for you and your particular situation. Especially you said there was an IC agreement.
Yes.
Yeah, even more so because you know, you could have a different way that you interact with your IC different than what someone else does too. So
I have read over it with a fine tooth comb, and I have modified things that work that are what the way I work versus the way that she works, and
right.
different things that I have in place that she didn't, and I have modified it.
Yeah, well, I still think, I mean, I don't think it would hurt to have somebody do a review just to make sure. I mean, one thing I offer to my clients is I can do a review and give you advice on how to fix it. Or if you just are like, I just want to scrap this and start from scratch and
Right.
just like, you just give me something you think is appropriate, we could do that too. So I've got different approaches based on how people want to do it.
So, are you a travel advisor as well as an
Yes, I'm
attorney?
both. And yeah, so I own my own law firm and I own my own agency. So
Wow.
that way I can help, I kind of see both sides.
Hey, that's always a great thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Keeps me busy.
And where are you located?
I'm in Richmond.
Oh, you are.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yes. That's why I wanted to offer this up to the chapter and I reached out to Tilly.
Very nice. Well, I screenshotted your contact information.
Oh,
So,
appreciate it. Appreciate it.
I
Excellent.
wanted to mention too, before we continue, that we have some folks here from the Hampton Roads chapter, as well as the Central Virginia, Central, okay, Beth, correct me,
Central Atlantic.
Central Atlantic
Central Atlantic.
chapter. Yeah, so we have all the chapters of Virginia represented tonight. And we
Yeah.
appreciate you all being here. We really do.
Yes, we
Well,
do appreciate it.
thank you for having us. This is always great information for travel advisors to have. So thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely. My
Anytime we can
pleasure.
get legal or CPA
Yes, that's another one. Yep.
information.
I
Yes.
agree. I agree. Any other questions? It's a great discussion. I appreciate all the questions. No?
Well, I guess if you all have any further questions, just follow up with Ganesh.
Yeah, you could send me an email or yeah, and some of us are in that Facebook group together. Now don't try to ask me legal questions in the Facebook group. That's probably not the best for. But obviously you have my email information now. And I am going to make sure this is recording and I'm going to stop recording shortly, but we're going to send this out to everybody on the email distribution list too, so they can have it and they can
Awesome.
watch the recording afterwards too. So
Perfect.
excellent. Well, I'm going to stop the recording. I appreciate everyone showing up. I'm going to stop now.
We thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank
and
you.
thank everyone for attending. Truly appreciate it. Hopefully we can keep in touch. Just reach out if you need anything.
We will. Thank you
Thank you so
so much.
much.
All right,
Thank
take
you.
care.
Look at
Bye-bye.
the chat.